Hello there, it's Tanja, and welcome to TP Talks Working Global. Today, we're diving right into how to find your next job opportunity in Switzerland. And to help us with this task, I'm joined by Angela Weinberger. She's an author, a lecturer, a founder, and managing director of Global People Transitions in Zurich, Switzerland. She brings a lot of very innovative solutions to international job seekers. So, Angela, welcome. Welcome. How are you today?
Hi, Tanya. Thanks for the warm welcome and the very kind intro. I'm great. It's Friday, so looking forward to the weekend.
Yes, yes, me too. So let's start with the first question, which is always pretty much the same question is, can you share your journey and how did you start your business? How did this come about?
Yeah, it's actually a funny story because I think my founder story starts where my career ended, my
Huh.
corporate career. I worked in HR and with a focus on global mobility for most of my corporate career. So I would say that spanned about 15 years. And then in 2010, I bought a new Mac. And with that Mac, I also started my blog, Global People Transitions.
Okay.
And I launched the company a few years later because I still was working in a managerial role at PricewaterhouseCoopers at the time as a global mobility leader.
Mhm.
And now we're a full-fledged training and coaching company for globally mobile professionals. Sometimes they're called expats, sometimes they're called nomads. It depends a bit on, where you're from or what your focus is.
Okay. And the clients that you serve, are they pretty much all types of nationalities, different ages and stages, or would you say it's a particular type of a population that you serve?
I think that generally they are very diverse when it comes to cultural backgrounds.
Mhm.
However, I would say it's all highly skilled. So they usually have at least a bachelor degree, sometimes master, sometimes PhD level.
Mhm.
And depending on what kind of work we're doing, because I have different programs as well, they can be anywhere in the world. So I'm based in Switzerland, in Zurich right now. However, they could also be in Dubai or I work with somebody in Romania. So, it really doesn't matter for me where people are. Um,
Uh-huh.
it depends a bit on the topic.
Oh, it's fascinating because I know I have some of people that are following me. They ask me, "Well, Tanya, how do you get a job in Switzerland, and how is the language situation?" They're all fascinated, especially with the beautiful environment and the mountainside. I have to say, it's very picturesque and very inviting. You just want to. I believe Switzerland just invites you and says, "Come live with me,"
Mhm.
and I really find the culture, be it for vacation or on a professional level, very inspiring. Which brings me to the next question: is some of these questions I'm going to ask you have been a summary of questions that I've gotten from my followers. Is speaking languages? Is it necessary to speak local languages, or is there some flexibility depending on the role?
Yeah, so obviously Switzerland is a really beautiful country, and I live in Zurich. I'm a big fan of the city. I think it's the most beautiful city in the world. A great place to live. I mean, I've lived in other places. Some of them are also really great places, but I really love Zurich. It's clean, it's organized, everything works, and it's also really expensive. So one of the things I think you need to know about our job market is that it's a very competitive job market. And the languages obviously make a difference. And also, it is important to note that Swiss German is not the same as High German. Yeah, so I'm German by background.
Okay.
I'm a High German speaker. I fully understand Swiss German. I cannot fully speak it. I could potentially try, but even after 16 years of being here, I don't really dare to, because I'm not going to speak it perfectly without an accent. So I'm careful about that.
Okay.
That is something I think a lot of people do not really understand. Yes, we have a lot of international companies here. We have a lot of medium-sized and even smaller companies that work across the world or export into the whole world. So there are a lot of English-speaking roles. This is true, but there's also a big expat population, not only in Zurich, but in the whole of Switzerland. The foreigner ratio is 25% in this country. It
Okay.
is an inbound market. Yeah, so similar to other expatriate hubs like Singapore, Dubai, Amsterdam, Berlin, a lot of people move here. So that's fantastic. But with that, the competition for the English speaking roles is also really high. So
Wow.
obviously, if you speak German, High German or Swiss German, for the Swiss German or part of Switzerland, or if you speak Italian in the Italian speaking part or French in the French speaking part, that gives you an additional advantage, obviously, over other job seekers. So if you're a French speaker, my advice would be try to find a job in the French speaking area first. There's also bilingual cities like Biel, which is only an hour from Zurich. And then, once you get better with the other languages, you might want to try to find a job in the other language sections.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, it's important to have at least some sense of the language, be it German, French, or Italian. You just can't go in there and assume that everybody's going to speak English. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, the thing is, you can live in Zurich without ever speaking German. You can survive as an English speaker or even non-native speaker of English. But I'm saying the competition for the English-speaking roles is 3 times or 4 times as high as the
Okay.
competition for the roles where you need to have one of the native languages.
Oh, interesting.
So, for many areas, we don't find enough personnel. But
Hmm.
that's because there is a scarcity of people speaking the language.
All right.
So language is actually a differentiator. However, I'm not saying you can't move here if you don't speak German. Yeah. Just make sure that you have a job first. I would really advise everybody not just to move here and try to find a job. Have a job first and then move here. Or come here as an expat partner, spouse, married to somebody who has a job, because then at least you have some stability in the initial times that you're here.
Right, right. Let's go just before we go forward. I wanted to go just a little bit back. You mentioned that there's a scarcity of jobs in certain sectors. Can
Mhm.
you elaborate a little bit on that part, please?
Mhm. It's actually a lot of areas where there is a scarcity. Um, if people want to know a bit more, Adecco brings out a report every year
Mhm.
where they explain exactly which areas these are. For example, for taking care of the older citizens, the senior citizens,
Right.
in the care sector, or doctors, certain types of IT engineers. So there's specific areas where, we have scarcity, but they also change. Now, in the last 2 years, we had an overflow of bankers in the market because of the unfortunate events around Credit Suisse that you probably know about from the press. So I would say at the moment, if you're in banking, your chances to find a job are probably not as great as they used to be. But in many other areas, we actually look for personnel. Now,
Right.
however, don't get sidelined or distracted by the fact that Switzerland has a very low unemployment rate. It is still not that easy to find a job
Okay. All right.
as a
Well, that's
foreigner.
really interesting. So, thanks for sharing the trends into health and care and specific IT roles. I think that's important to know for those who just kind of want to go there and figure things out. And the fact that you should be looking before coming in, which brings me to the next couple of questions. Is so let's say that we have maybe some people who are out there thinking, yeah, I would like to come in, and let me prepare. How would you suggest one prepares? Do you just start posting resumes and applications online? Do you network? Do you do LinkedIn? What would be your suggestion to people who are looking for opportunities before coming in?
Mm. So I've just made a video, I just posted that on LinkedIn, about the first step that I think people should take is to think about the kind of roles that they would actually target in the real world.
Okay.
Because I often meet students or younger professionals or professionals who have been out of the workforce for a little bit, and they can't tell me really, what kind of roles they're actually looking for. So the first thing is to understand those labels, as I call them. For example, are you a digital media specialist, or are you a program manager, product manager? What is your role called in the real world today? And when you know that, and when you have identified potentially max up to 3 roles that you could actually do based on your profile, then add the location that you're targeting. So for example, Frankfurt, Munich, Zurich, Basel, and enter these combinations, role profiles plus location into Google and into LinkedIn, and find out what kind of roles they actually give to you and set a few alerts for yourself.
Okay.
Because that will help you find out if you have the real requirements for the role. Because sometimes people don't really understand that they have to have some hard requirements in order to be accepted into the roles. It will help you understand the language requirements, and also it will help the algorithm understand what you're looking for. And then the algorithms will suggest you a few more related jobs or similar jobs. And if you start your search on Google and not only on LinkedIn, you will also get all the job aggregators. We have, for example, jobs.ch, which is a big aggregator where a lot of jobs flow in from different sites. Yeah, because there are still companies in Switzerland that don't post on LinkedIn. I don't know why, but this is possible. So use Google search in addition to LinkedIn search. And speaking of LinkedIn, I still meet people who do not have a LinkedIn profile. I mean, how is that possible in 2025?
You're right. And it's an excellent point because when I recruit or coach people, most of them do not have it. Or if they do, I call it the ghost LinkedIn profile, where there's barely their name, but there's no photo. So absolutely. And it's I don't know, I'd like to hear from your point of view how LinkedIn is viewed when looking for an opportunity in Switzerland. But I know that for people, or especially French job seekers who are going to the US, they often just skip the LinkedIn or have a ghost profile. So I wanted to hear from you, how important is LinkedIn usage and the presence of being on LinkedIn to finding the opportunity in Switzerland?
For me, this is like 80% necessary,
wow.
at least. And the reason is, first of all, if you have a LinkedIn profile, that shows you're a real person and not just a scammer. Yeah, so if I get an email from someone I don't know, I first of all check if they have a LinkedIn profile. And then I find out if we have anybody in common. Yeah, so if they're trustworthy or not. So I think it legitimizes you as a human being if you have a LinkedIn profile. Second, recruiters search actively on LinkedIn. I'm not sure if your viewers are aware, but HR departments 10, 15 years ago started to build active sourcing. We call it active sourcing specialists inside the organization. They're sometimes also called talent acquisition specialists. It's a funny word, but what it basically means is a recruiter who works in the company. And where do they search for candidates? On LinkedIn. How? By searching for labels, job profiles, and skills. And if your LinkedIn profile is not up to speed, they won't find you. And so one of the things, for example, I notice very often when I look at profiles, language skills are not mentioned separately in the skills section. They're mentioned somewhere under languages, but they're critical. They're so important. If you speak German, mention German as a skill. Then people can endorse you for that. Or if you're an expert in global mobility, put global mobility in your expertise section. I know it sounds funny, but sometimes people don't think about the most obvious things.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely critical. There's another reason why this is critical that we haven't touched on yet. My favorite topic, relationships.
Go for it.
Because, as you know, Tanja, everything works with relationships. You and I, we would not sit here today if we hadn't built a relationship over many, many years.
Absolutely.
And if you have a LinkedIn profile, it's like an address book. Yeah. In the old days, we had a stash of business cards. You probably remember. I remember that too. Yeah. We would maintain like the stash of business cards. And now we have LinkedIn. So it's like our address book.
Absolutely.
If you want to maintain relationships with people, you need to have them somewhere. Yeah. You need to have them stored somewhere.
Absolutely.
So definitely important.
Absolutely. And the T word, the trust, you need trust, and you need someone who vouches for you when you're applying to that job. And it's so important to know who's connected to the jobs and the companies that you're aiming or pivoting for. So that's really some sound advice, and I really appreciate you underlining that, because often that kind of goes away when we're stressed, or I know my clients when they're stressed or fatigued, and the first thing they do is, I don't want to talk to anybody, I don't want to do my pitch, I don't want to brand, I just want to go online and send hundreds of resumes and then be frustrated without anything in return. Which brings me to the next questions. Resumes, cover letters, application. How does this look like, and what to prepare and how to do this to get that opportunity in Switzerland?
Yeah, now we're touching like the big topics, the big guns. Obviously, there's a whole like science around this topic. And one of the things I tell people is, if you ask 5 people about your resume, you will get 5 different opinions. And my advice here would be to work with some experts that actually understand the job market and not just rely on AI tools and templates. So in Switzerland, in many, many places, the CVs are very still very detailed and require a lot of personal information that you don't give to anybody in any other country in the world.
Interesting.
Also, we have a photo on the resume, which also is not that common in many countries anymore. We have a date of birth on a resume. Sometimes even, your marital status is requested, the number of children, the age of the children. So we really ask for a lot of personal data, and in many countries in the world that would be seen as illegal and discriminatory. So number one big difference is in how things are portrayed. For foreigners, I always also recommend put your nationality and your work and residence permit status on the CV. Don't confuse HR by saying things they don't understand.
Okay.
I mean, if you put in a work permit and residence permit and some legal gibberish, that doesn't help anybody. It has to be something they understand in their cultural context. Yeah, so in the EU, whatever, I have a blue card, or in Switzerland, I have a C permit, B permit, so that they don't have to second guess, if you're actually legal and if you can actually work in the country. This comes from my global mobility background, something that I really think is sometimes underestimated, because HR professionals, talent acquisitions professionals, recruiters, they don't want to deal with immigration. They want you ready to work, basically. Yeah. So I think it's important to remember that as a foreigner.
So what you're saying, if I'm understanding correctly, is to really put this information ahead of time, so that way the guesswork is done and you've done the work of what HR needs to see before it gets to HR, whether it's a recruiter or another contact in the company, right?
Yeah, yeah. And if you're not sure about that, there are obviously immigration specialists and lawyers in every country that can answer these questions for you.
Okay.
The other thing that I think is important, you asked about the cover letter. Now, in many online application processes nowadays, I do not think a cover letter is still required. However, I think it is good practice to think about your motivation for the job. And, you know, whether you put that in a cover letter or in a text field doesn't make a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
And it should not be a repetition of what you've already written in your CV. No, it should be something specific to that role and the company you're applying to.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually recommend to my clients a bit of an exercise around that to think about, okay, why specifically that role and why specifically that company? What connects you with the brand? What are your shared values, etc.? And this is also good preparation for any interview people might go to. And I know people are not always proactive or they want to take things step by step, but this is a really good thing to do, you know, to proactively prepare why you want to work in this role with this company as if you were invited to an interview, as if you were already in the seat.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what you're saying about people just want to be miserable. I don't think anybody wants to actively be miserable. Job search is really not that easy and hard. But if you're just, you know, sending out spam emails or, you know, you send your resume to somebody on LinkedIn in a direct message, that's not going to get you anywhere. So I also think people need to think a bit more strategically about how they spend their time when job searching. What are the things that actually lead to results? And what are things that are just annoying and bring your energy down? And don't do these things. You know, if you see there are 100 people already clicked applying on LinkedIn, don't apply. What's the point? You know, so you know, this is one of the things that I'm working on with my clients as well. Is just to be a bit more sensible about, you know, what makes sense in these kind of situations.
It's a great. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Tanya. It's just important because also I think this is probably different in many other countries. When in Switzerland we speak about a complete application file, we also expect a complete dossier full of your certificates, your certifications, your university records, your transcripts. I recommend to clients to include the work permit, a criminal record from their home country, and also some other information. So again, that the HR process can be completed faster.
Okay.
But many people, you know, especially let's say, you know, you're studying abroad, you might not have all this documentation ready. But then what you can do is you can build like a cover sheet where you say, okay, these are the documents I need to provide to you. These documents I already have. Yeah, put a little sign on it that you've already provided that document, and maybe just say, this certificate from my university days is still in my mom's house, so I'm going to get it next time. To make sure that the HR professional understand where you are with your documentation.
That's some great tips that you give right there, and I just want to highlight that by applying online, that's not intentional and kind of a well-prepared dossier should be, it becomes spam email, and that's really important. That what you said, and instead really be proactive and prepare that file, which most in other countries is probably not the procedure to really prepare it. So that way, when you're in, you get the ball rolling faster. That's some great tips that you give. That's great. Did you want to add anything else with other experience that you've had? What are some common faux pas or tricky things that happen that you cannot say enough of? Don't do that, for example.
One of the things you just mentioned, don't send your CV unless you're asked to, because it will right away land in a spam folder.
Okay.
And also don't send your CV through LinkedIn. Who does that? I'm sorry, this is just not good. So if you want to apply to a job in Switzerland and in all countries in Europe, there's usually a process. Follow the process. Don't try to go around the process. The only thing you should try to do is to find out if you know anyone inside the company already who could refer you in, because this would be helpful.
Sound advice, sound advice. Another question that I had is, in an interview, if they don't call you back, is it okay to follow up? Or how is that seen?
It's also one of those things, like this one-sided sword, because many people don't understand. And I was the same when I moved here. Yeah. So I'm not saying that this is a faux pas or something. I think it's just cultural difference. We need to learn when we move here. We need to learn that things run differently in different countries. I still learn that every time I go to France. Yeah. And it's just across the border. So things take a while sometimes here. And the reason why that is because in Switzerland, because it's such a democratic country, everything needs to be discussed with many, many people. And sometimes that just takes more time than people might be used to or expecting. So let's say, you have an interview and they tell you, we will get back to you within the next 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, they didn't get back to you. Then I think after 2 weeks, you can send a friendly email and say, hey, just wanted to check. I'm still interested in the role. Is there any progress? But it's important, whatever you do in terms of follow-up, is that you remain absolutely friendly.
Okay, sound advice. This is excellent. Wow, some really great morsels of advice here for your next opportunities in Switzerland. As we conclude our interview, I just wanted to, first of all, thank you for this incredible insight into finding opportunities in Switzerland. And before we leave, where can listeners find you, and what are some next events that you can suggest?
Yeah, so first of all, I have a masterclass coming up next week, Thursday, on the 20th of March at noon, European time, Paris, Zurich, Basel, called Finding a Job or Finding Paid Work Through Relationships. Because I really think that you need to have good relationships in order to find work nowadays. It's not enough to apply to jobs online. Now, we still have a few spots available. If somebody's interested in joining that masterclass, the best thing would be if they message me directly on LinkedIn. I'm Angela Weinberger on LinkedIn. I'm connected with you. It should be easy to find me. Best way, direct message. Or email angela@globalpeopletransitions.com.
Great. Thank you very much, Angela. Before we wrap it all up, is there any final advice, any tip or trick that you'd like to share with the audience who may be looking to take their next steps into job search in Switzerland?
Yes, I have so many things to say. I think, first of all, if they're interested, I'm doing these tip things on YouTube. So
Okay.
there's more tips coming up. If people want these little nuggets of wisdom, please check me out on YouTube. But second of all, it's so important that you keep at it. I can't stress this enough. Job search isn't that easy. But it's important that you keep the pace. Yeah. So once you get into the application, once you start networking, that you keep at it, that you don't give up, and that you keep the spirit. And I think sometimes it's really helpful if you're in a community of people that understand you and are supportive, like Tanja, myself, and that cheer you on. Yeah, because we know that it's a tough thing to do, to find a job. So yeah, keep up the spirit, keep working on it, and I'm sure you will find work as soon as possible.
Sound words. Thank you very much, Angela. And be your own cheerleader and be surrounded with cheerleaders, because job search is a job in of itself. Thank you again, Angela. Thank you for all of you who have been viewing this live Finding a Job in Switzerland. Don't forget to check all the resources that I have, or tag Angela and send her a DM directly. Until next time, take care and good luck on that job search.